Welcome, Highlander fans, to Blooded Kings, a Highlander podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. On this show, we cover everything in the Highlander universe. And on this special episode, we are going to be talking about this. Highlander the Gathering, Season 1, Episode 1, debuted in October of 1992. And this is a very cool VHS copy that I have. We'll talk more about that later. My name is Kevin, and I, of course, am one of your co-hosts here at Blooded Kings, and I would like to introduce my fellow co-host, Highlander aficionado, Mr. Lee. What is going on, buddy? Good to see you.
Good to be seen, sir. Good to be seen. I've been stuck in that sanctuary with a little tube up my nose, and somebody cut all my friends' heads off, so I'm on a mission of revenge.
It's been a while, brother. It's been a while.
Yes, it has.
This is Blooded Kings, our Highlander podcast. And yes, we've taken a little hiatus, and we'll go into that in a second here. We are discussing Highlander episode 1 of the TV series, and really excited about that. And we are the Fandom Podcast Network, Blooded Kings. Make sure, if you're listening to us, check us out on YouTube, because that's what we're recording right now, our video. And so if you are watching us on YouTube, we appreciate that. And Lee, like I said, we are talking about The Gathering here. And of course, this is from season 1. And I have a picture up here of my VHS tape, but there's also I think it was an overseas version of the VHS tape. And I have that poster too, that highlighted the original Highlander, because, more people know who he is in that. Were you familiar with this?
This was actually how I saw the first episode of Highlander. I got into it late, or like midway through the Vancouver half of the first season, and then saw this at the video store. And I'm like, wait, I thought that was The Quickening, because this was before they did new cuts. And then I read it, and it's like, oh,
yeah, it's all his Quickening look there from Highlander 2.
And then I see that it's got Adrian Paul and Stan Kirsch in it, and I'm like, oh, cool, there's another movie. And then it ended up being the first episode, or first 2 episodes, the one I rented. But I just remember being really confused by the poster.
I ended up finding this VHS copy at a thrift store. And I had heard of it. I'd seen pictures of it, I think, either in the catalogs or on eBay. And I had to pick it up. And this is the one with the double feature with Family Tree in it. I know there was other versions overseas that had double features with another episode. But yeah, it's 2 VHS cassettes. But the cool thing is, I don't think I'd ever seen the special feature that came after. Because I actually played this VHS in my VHS player. And after the episode, or movie, if you want to call that, there's a nice little behind-the-scenes interview with people, around the beginning of this production of Highlander, the TV series. So I'll talk about that a little bit more. But you know what, Lee? It's been a while. Let's catch up. And what do you say we head to Joe's? It's been a while.
Oh, yes, it has.
All right, Joes, here we are. You've missed us. You missed Kevin. You missed Lee. It has been a while, man. So, yeah. First, let's do a little catch up. Obviously, people have been wondering where we've been. We've been busy. I've been doing stuff, but you've been really busy of why you haven't been doing a lot of podcasting, because normally you'll come on for other podcasts here on the network, whether it's a Couch Potato Theater or something else. But you've been busy. Tell us what you've been up to.
I have been a local director wanted to do a Star Wars fan film, and came to me because I'm insane and I don't do normal fights, and I of course always like to kind of push a certain agenda about a certain fight choreographer from the prequel trilogies, and I decided, yep, yes, exactly, somebody who should return his paycheck because he didn't really earn it, but the level of insanity that I was able to do on this, because I had carte blanche and I had a bunch of guys that I've worked with who know that I do just insane fights. The overall cast of fighters was 17 people, and most of us played 2 roles at least. Like, we'd just be another faceless Sith. but very few of the matchups were equal one-on-one. And if there was a one-on-one, it would be like a guy my size versus like a girl, like a smaller person, or it'd be, 2-on-1. I had 1-on-3. And it was not locked into any distinct style. There was one spear fight that was a 4-on-1.
Wow.
And the guy using the spear, it was a 9-foot-long spear, lightsaber spear. And when I saw that, he just brought it to practice one day, and he's like, "Hey, I was thinking we could use this." And I'm like, "I'm thinking we can use that too," because I love spear work, and you never see good spear work in movies and whatnot. So I stole. I actually messaged Braun and I said, "Hey, I stole some stuff very liberally from the staff stuff you did in Wrath of Khali, but I went insane with it." And he's like, "Good on you." And but like I stole stuff
F.
from
Ron
him.
McAsh, who of course was the sword choreographer for Highlander TV series.
Yep, but I was stealing stuff from Spanish school, so there's a little bit of destreza. There's some classic broadsword, a lot of kenjutsu. One of my students, I actually had her almost pure Bob Anderson swordplay. I mean, everything she did, it was you'd swear that she was the daughter of Adrian Paul and Mark Hamill. I mean, she just just tread the line and just had a blast. But it was two 4-hour rehearsals every week from end of February really until last Monday.
And this is on top of your day jobs as well.
Yes, and on top of teaching my regular students, and on top of trying to find a woman to spend any reasonable amount of time with me. So thank you to anybody that's been dumb enough to do that.
Well, I'm glad you had a time to carve out to get an episode of Bloody Kings in, because I'm going to be taking a little trip, and I'll talk about that in a second. But well, I'm glad you're here. You're back. We're talking Bloody Kings. I've been kind of like, doing this a little bit. Like, we need to talk about Highlander. We need to talk about Highlander because the new movie's supposedly been delayed, and if it's going to happen, we don't know. And so it's tough to get excited about talking about Highlander again when you think you've talked about it all. But we haven't, and you can always revisit stuff we've done before, but with a different angle and kind of have fun with it in different ways and stuff. Yeah. So,
but we can't keep talking about what Chad Stahelski might do. Like, Henry Cavill, like the conversation's been done to death by everybody, and nobody has posted anything worth talking about in 2 years.
Yeah. So I thought we would start off. We used to do a lot of sword experience updates and stuff. We haven't done one in a long time, and I encourage you to go up to the website if you want. If you have not done a sword experience with Adrian Paul, you should. It's a lot of fun. Our friend Priscilla has done like 60 now, I think, sharing her stories on that, which has been great. But there's one that's coming up in September of 2023, which as of this recording, we're recording in August of 2023. That's next month. And they're actually doing it on my birthday, which is cool. And this one's special because they are doing this in Vancouver, which, of course, AKA is Seacouver, September 15th through the 17th. And there's some really cool things that, in addition to just the regular, event itself. Of course, this is the 30th anniversary of the Highlander season 1, and so that's another reason why they're celebrating this. Some more details on this from the Sword Experience website. That's swordxp.com. Is XP presents the 30th anniversary Highlander season 1 in Vancouver, Canada. Join us for a one-of-a-kind experience. Not only we have the opportunity to train with Adrian Paul at some of the same locations where Highlander season 1 was filmed, but you also get to hear stories from the Highlander himself along the way. We'll begin on Friday afternoon with a meet and greet. You'll get excited for this weekend's activities. Then Saturday morning, you'll get to head out to various locations, including Workers Memorial Bridge, North Vancouver Cemetery, and Mount Seymour Provincial Park. Sunday's tour locations will include Broad Bridge, Blood Alley Square in Gastown, and Aberthow Mansion. Now, when I heard about this, I remember, I think it was Andy Sloan, who is the location manager or master. I've been on his tour in Seacouver / Vancouver, and it's fantastic. I hit him up. I said, "Hey, can you give me some more details? How are you going to how are you involved with this? And he said that he had some Zoom calls with Adrian and his assistant, and he was the one who recommended these venues for the event. And he's also going to be leading filming location portions event during that event, and then after Adrian's event, he's going to be leading his own tour. That's going to be visiting a bunch more locations. So if you can, this is the one event that you'll want to go to, and I'm sure we'll hear some cool stories from it. And I did want to give a shout out, of course. This is the episode, The Gathering, that we're talking about, and this is from the beginning of the episode. This picture I'm putting up here, Lee, of the antique store where Adrian has, Duncan at his shop, and that is one of the locations that Andy will take you to. There's a shot of me there in front of the old location, and with me and Andy there as well.
And your old man beard, what's going
on? My old man
beard,
yeah. What was I thinking? I don't know.
You look like you're about to order an IPA. Can I get something really hoppy?
But yes, here is the iconic Vancouver/Seacouver skyline there, and there's the Vancouver at the top restaurant that does rotate. And I am here's another picture of me outside Duncan's loft. You can see that iconic tower in the back there. You can you can go up there for a little tour, and you can also eat some food up there, which is very, very cool. So had to give a shout out to that as well. But Lee, I know you've spent some time in Paris. I have as well, but you've actually lived there. And so you've actually been to some of the Highlander locations there. I have to be completely honest. The first time I was in Paris, I'd heard of Highlander, but I wasn't into it as hardcore as I became later. And that was back in 1998. That was during the World Cup. And that's when France actually ended up winning the World Cup, and the World Cup France was hosting the World Cup. But I didn't get a chance to really do any Highlander tours per se. And then the last time I was there, I was only there for a day. But I have a trip coming to England in September, and for my birthday, or after my birthday, my wife Erin and I are going to be taking the Eurostar train, that channel train that goes from London to Paris. We're going to spend about 3 nights in Paris. And so I had to go to Andy and say, look, I'm not going to be there very long, but I have to visit some locations finally. I mean, come on. I went to Scotland with my wife, and we went to all the locations that we could there. I've been to the Andy tour in Seacouver. Got to do some locations in Paris. So a little tease to locations I'm going to attempt to go to. The first one I thought of course, Lee, is the original barge location right near Notre Dame. You've been here before, obviously.
Yes, sir. I actually went to school really right there. It was kind of fun. If you basically the shot on the left, you see the bridge right there on the backside of Notre Dame.
Yes.
That was literally the bridge that went up to my school.
Nice.
So, or to one of the buildings that I took some classes in, and the bridge beyond that, also another class. So, like, I was right there, and oddly enough, right in between those two bridges is the Park Rene Viviani, where we see Tessa and Duncan running together in the first Darius episode, and that's also, if you turn around, there is Darius's church. So
get to that in a second, because the other location, of course, is you have to go to the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, I thought that was the Washington Monument.
We're going to go to the Eiffel Tower, of course, because once you're in Paris, you have to go to the Eiffel Tower. You got to see it from different locations, and so we're going to make a trip there. I don't know if we'll be able to go up to the top or not. I did that back in '98. I don't know if you have to make reservations or not, or what the deal is, but we'll look into that. But at least get some pictures in and around it. The other location, as you mentioned, is Darius's church. It's funny, when I started pinning these locations into Google Maps, realized they're all kind of near each other. It's interesting. And I have not been here before, and this is one of the iconic locations. Because keep in mind, when you're a Highlander fan and you're thinking, like, which iconic locations do you want to visit? If you have to narrow it down to 4, I definitely think the Darius Church is one of them.
Yeah, and definitely, especially because you are walking distance from literally you can trip and land your head on the curb right next to Shakespeare and Company.
Well, funny you say that, because that's next.
Yep.
Right there, Shakespeare and Company. I got to go visit this place.
Which was a fantastic place. I actually slept there for a few nights, but I was allergic to the cat, so I had to go to a hostel. But
is there an Airbnb up above there? Is that what it was?
This is pre-Airbnb. This was George, the guy that ran this. Wonderful man. He just loved supporting like writers and wanderers and dreamers, and he called it the Tumbleweed Hotel. And if you did a couple hours worth of work in the store, tried to read a book or two, if you kind of wander around, you can't see them in any of these pictures, but there are beds all through the first 2 floors, and then on the 3rd floor is an apartment, and people would sleep in the front room, and he had a thing in the back room. There's been some dispute since he passed of whether the apartment actually belongs to the store or a different estate, blah blah blah, but it was really very fun, just being part of the Hotel Tumbleweed back in the early 2000s. And there was, as you go up the stairs, there's just this little sign. And if you could grab a picture of it for me, I'd just love to see it again. But it said, "Be not inhospitable to strangers, lest they be angels in disguise."
Nice.
And it was one of these like little things that popped into my head every
you
time
remember
I
that
travel.
is so cool. I'll have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, and it's grab a book. In the picture on the right there, all the stuff out on the right side is just random stuff that people on the staff like. Some of my favorite books I've ever read, I bought there for €2 off that rack.
Do they know that it's a Highlander location?
Yes, and they have such a charmingly French way of not giving a damn.
I love it. That's great.
Like, people, you walk in like, "Oh, this was the store from Highlander." They're like, "Yes,
whatever."
Peace out.
Well, I was trying to think about. I wanted to pick 4 locations. There's a 5th one too, but I had to pick 4 locations and just kind of limit myself to that because of all the other locations that we want to go to. And I was thinking about all the stuff that was in and around the area. And this one's actually the furthest one out, but I think it's attainable. And that is this location right here. Does this look familiarly?
Yes, sir.
What's
that
this?
is beautiful. I'm trying to remember the name of the place, but that's where Mythos fought the ginger weirdo.
Yes, but also in another area, this is where Duncan
Duende. Yeah,
Duende. Yes, they use this more. They use different locations for different things, but I had to throw these different pictures. This is a very large park. It's called the Parc de Saint Cloud. Parc de Saint. I don't. My French is horrible.
Saint Cloud. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a little bit on the outside of the city though. But I was looking at all the pictures and around there. It just looks gorgeous. I don't know if we'll be able to get there or not, but I'd like to at least put it on the list. The other thing that I did put on the list to try to go to was just because I've never really been to it. I think I've driven by it. Is the Opera House. And I think they filmed an episode, if I remember correctly. I've never been to the catacombs. So
yeah.
we have the catacombs on a list as well. So
I will highly recommend either. The Opera House, if you can, there's very cheap tickets to do whatever's playing there most of the time. You might be up in nosebleeds, but if they're doing opera, if they're doing some sort of theater, I was usually doing nosebleed seats for like €8. And it's absolutely gorgeous. You will never in your life feel fancier than you do walking up the stairs in the Opera Garnier.
Yeah.
The catacombs is a long walk down and a long walk up. So if your feet hurt, if your knees are doing the old man thing, think it through, dude. Just right. Not saying don't do it, but just be prepared.
Well, I'll have comfortable shoes with me, and my wife and I like to get in our walks, so I'll count my steps and we'll give it a shot. So,
and I'll also say that while you're at Saint Julien and Shakespeare and Company, you've got the Templar Museum from whenever the dude went crazy when he became immortal is right there. And the best crepes in Paris are like around the corner in a little place called Crepuscule. That should be your lunch every day you're there.
Where's that?
It's on Boulevard Saint-Germain, just west or just east of the McDonald's. But it's like just the heart of the Latin Quarter, right across from the Cluny Museum. There is no better crepe in the entire city.
I had some good crepes at the bottom of Sacre Coeur, which is where the final duel took place in John Wick 4. So that's going to be a stop as well, as I want to go there. But there is a great crepe place at the bottom of that as well. So
yeah. Well, get the salty crepes with ham, egg, and cheese. That was my staple for almost a year.
Sound good. That does sound good. Well, wish me luck. Hopefully I can get to at least a few of these locations. But I did have a question before we get out of Joe's here. If there was another Highlander Paris-y location, I think it's too far out, but the one where there was the duel with Luther and at the farm. Adrian at those ruins, I thought about that. But if there was a location in and around Paris that you think Highlandery that I should do if I have time for, and who knows, I might be near them just because, what would you recommend?
Let's see. You know what? Because you're going to be there with your lady. The first episode that they did in Paris wasn't Band of Brothers. It was the other one. There's a restaurant called Hippopotamus, which is kind of it's a step up from TGI Fridays, but it's a French TGI Fridays. But it's right across from the Luxembourg Gardens, which are absolutely stunning. There's Medici fountains, all this beautiful stuff.
What scene was filmed there?
When they're talking about moving to Paris, and he's like, "Well, I'll be a kept man. I'll be staying on the barge." When he announces that he bought the barge, it's at the Hippopotamus, right by the Luxembourg Gardens, down the hill from the Pantheon.
Oh, okay.
So it's I'll draw you a map, but
it's not that iconic though. That's the thing. Wouldn't you say? Is there a more iconic location?
Trying to
that's
think.
Not the first one I would have thought of.
I mean, there's a few, but like you would be traveling a lot, and this would be like walking distance from everything else that you're doing in Saint Julien. I mean, you could do the Stade de France up in Saint Denis, where they did the famous horse track fight. Trying to think.
I mean, would you say that list I have is a pretty good list?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but the place where they did the fashion show in Eye of the Beholder. It'll come to Galerie Lafayette. It's a weird thing. They do a fashion show probably once a week, maybe twice. But it's good shopping, and it's an interesting district. Great food, really weird kitschy stuff. And if you're going with the lady, she gets the Highlander fix, she gets the fashion fix. It's good stuff.
I get the Highlander fix. So yeah. Well, cool. Well,
she likes Highlander too.
Yeah, she's more a fan of the movie though. So
fair enough.
But still, we'll be in Paris and it'll be fun. So, but anyway, I think I got a good list. Wish me luck. Hopefully, I can get it done. Well, let's head on out of Joe's. All right. Well, we got an Immortal Buzz segment here because we've got some comments from fans regarding this Highlander the Gathering here. So let's get a little. Before I read their comments, Lee, did you have this copy of The Gathering? Did you ever pick this up, or did you rent it like some other people were talking about that they did?
I rented it, and then when the series came out on VHS, I grabbed like the giant masonry block of VHS, but I did not have that specific version. No.
Masonry block.
It was like
all the seasons came out in that big VHS format.
It's like you needed an extra room just to have room.
Yeah, well, this is the 2 cassette one here, and yes, I actually have a VHS. I was able to watch this though, but I wanted to get some thoughts on what other people were saying about this thing. So on Blood of Kings, my buddy, this was about the episode itself. Our friend Vincent Stefanelli said, decent enough episode to introduce the characters and also have Christopher Lambert into it to pass the torch in a way. Kind of cheesy villain, but in the early 90s, it's the early 90s, and it's the first episode. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but I agree. I think it was a good introductory episode. Clinton Rawls says, cheesy villain aside, it's a must-see episode for me because Lambert and Paul have such good chemistry from jump. They both strike me as real people in their own ways, and they must have contributed to, and that must have contributed to the performances together. And I replied saying the chemistry was good. Did you get that right off, that their chemistry, Christoph and Adrian really kind of clicked?
Absolutely. And they really did feel like they'd known each other forever. Pun intended. I think it's along the lines, honestly, of the way you can tell that Connery and Lambert were friends. Like, right. There's just sometimes you can work great with another actor. Sometimes it's like, I'm reading my lines, you're reading your lines. We can be great, but there's nothing there. Like, it really is there. I mean, what about the redhead? Healthy girl. Like, just there's nothing even slightly inappropriate about that, but like suddenly there's an inappropriate story and they don't want to say it in front of the lady. She'll just go crochet while they talk about cigarettes.
I almost feel like when two old buddies get together, all you have to do is to make them feel like they've known each other for a while, even if they're not immortals, just say, what about the redhead? And it'll work. And, there was a redhead. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Our friend Jason Benyon said Slan is an unfortunate character. They obviously hadn't decided how broadly they wanted to play the show at the point, and were trying to do something Kurgan-esque. But as others have said, the chemistry between Adrian and Lambert was great. I always hoped Connor would return. And overall, the episodes does a good job of setting things up, even for people who aren't familiar with the original movie or its premise. It's a good pilot. Also, starting with Duncan and Tessa, Occupied was quite an attention grabber. Yes, it was, Jason. But I liked how they kind of reset the rules. Not reset it, but they kind of reintroduced the rules.
Yeah.
No 2-on-1 when Slant says Slant says And then when you see that Tessa is asking Connor and Duncan about like what's going on, and then they go into the gathering thing and stuff like that. So.
Well, I also think it needs to be said, like, what they did with Tessa's character is so much more interesting than what they did with any of Connor's women in the movies to this point. In that she already loved him. Like, we got the meet cute later. Like, they're in a relationship and they're dealing with the crap and the drama of it. The damn you and your whole race. Like, that was, that's dealing with the reality of this that they didn't do with Brenda or with Louise Marcus or whatever her name was. Like, it really was a Tessa story, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons why everyone loved her so much, is because we started at 60 miles an hour instead of going 0 to 60 slowly, like some of the problems we had with Anne. It's probably the same reason why we still love Amanda so much, is because they started with history. And
and right off the bat, she knows he's 400 years old, and so that she knows the secret, and that was kind of interesting because from the original film and some of the other female co-stars, they fall into the secret. They learn about it, and this right off the bat is established, which I thought was pretty cool. So. I also did a post on Highlander Heart there because I wanted to kind of see who else had this double cassette here. And our friend Kirby says, I still have mine. I have the official store exclusive version as well. And that has the picture of both Adrian and Christoph with their
cross swords,
holding them down, And he said that the second half was Revenge is Sweet. That's interesting. That's pretty cool. Neil said, I had a couple of the UK TV series releases. They were actually how I first found out about the show. I remember seeing them on shelves and thinking they must be some sequels I had never heard of. I was starting to see a trend of this, Lee, because you kind of mentioned the same thing, that maybe the episode had been out. Not everyone had seen it, but the VHS was hitting shelves around the world.
Yeah. And I think I lost you. Maybe me.
Oh, can you hear me? Are you still there?
I can hear you now. You're frozen. I don't know if that's me or you.
Might be you, but can you hear me? Are you okay? Because you seem to be okay on my end. So
yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
I'll tell you what. I'll turn my camera off, see if we can get a little bit better resolution. Maybe that'll solve.
Might be the back blurring thing too that you got going on. Maybe that's it. So, but come back in a little. Just show your camera a little bit later when better. So, but you were mentioning the VHS as it starts to seep into video stores.
Yeah, and I think that was a really interesting way to do it because I don't think we've had at that point day and date drops of the show like that. So right. These guys like, oh, what's this? You know, back then you had to wait till like mid-season when they're doing reruns to see the episode you missed. But now you get the whole thing starting off, and as quickly as this went into syndication on other networks, you started picking it up. I think by the third season, I had actually seen everything and knew where stuff was placed.
I felt like I missed out so much on that early buzz because it was, like I said, and I've said it a million times before, it was just on at weird times in California, and I was doing other things as well, and I caught up on it when they finally started hitting a DVD. As the Immortal Buzz segment here on Bloody Kings continues, to read from comments from Highlander fans here. Michael Mott said, I had the first 3 VHS tapes of season 1 that I bought individually until I saw the entire season. A box set got somewhat upset. I did purchase the 6 seasons on DVD and sent away for the Highlander collector shield with the 6 holographic coins. Ooh, I have that. Very cool. And David says, it's funny how Connor's photo towers over Duncan's, of course. Christoph's image is going to sell more overseas, right, Lee?
Yeah, especially back then. So
yeah. Next, we have comment saying, had it but lost it. I have all the box set videos except that one. And Rhett said, I have the one from the old video store, was a misleading kind of cover that had Connor with long hair and a black coat from Highlander 2. That was the image we were showing earlier. I remember renting it as a teenager thinking maybe it was a whole different Highlander movie that I had never seen or heard of, only to play it, realize it was just a pilot to the TV series I had already seen several times. Laugh out loud. I'm sure he was not alone. But I'd like to get that. He showed a picture, by the way, of the original VHS copy of that release where it shows the Highlander 2 Connor. It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Say what you will about Highlander 2. Connor looked probably the best in that movie.
Yeah, he did. He did look cool in that one. Yeah. And Rhett replied to Kirby saying, yep, I remember seeing it at the video store. I ran thinking maybe it was an extended cut of the episode. The only unique thing about it was that the title card, and some months later at the end of the second episode, when the camera pans above Duncan into the clouds, it shows the image of Duncan and Connor from the flashback of their first episode. So yeah, there we go. So obviously there's a pattern there when it comes to people that were experiencing it for the first time. So, all right, well, let's head on out of the Immortal Buzz segment here. Lee, how's your camera? Is it working better now, you think?
Let's take a look here.
Let's see here. Let's see if you don't freeze up. Am I freezing up? Am I freezing up? Stop.
Narp.
Well played, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
I'd like to do reviews of the episodes that we cover, or read reviews. And obviously our friend Billy Dew, she's a big Highlander fan, and she does reviews of this episode. And I'm just going to go right into it. Check it out here. She goes in, I started watching this series very late in its run. If I had started with the pilot, I probably would have stopped right here. The first scene in particular is so bad that it's enough to make me groan out loud. It did several good things, though. The reset button. They brought the Highlander universe back to its original first movie concept. Many immortals in competition for the prize, whatever it may be. Adrian Paul is Duncan, although he was a bit wooden at times in early episodes, his acting improved quickly and dramatically, pun intended, and his charm and incredible athleticism, especially with the sword, were two of the major reasons why the series took off. He was also, in my opinion, the best looking man on television. No small thing. I want to stop right there. Interesting comment, Lee. She says right off the bat that if this was the first thing that she watched, she might not have kept watching. But, well, she did.
I think there's something to be said for that. No offense to Richard Mall. He wasn't a really good bad guy, and the good stuff about this episode had nothing to do with him. It really was the setup of the world. He was ancillary to that. Really, it's not until we get to Dustin Nguyen that we have a truly good sword fight in season 1. By the way, go back and re-listen to our Dustin Nguyen episodes that we did.
Yeah.
Because all we are is Dustin Nguyen dudes.
See what you did there.
Sorry, I had to. But that said, there is set up there. It's unfortunately not the A story. It is the B story. But I also think that visually it is grabbing. Because, you start in that antique store and you have the introduction of Richard Mall is interesting. And then he just sort of sucks. This fight scene, probably, the best fight that we have until we see Dustin Nguyen show up. And this was fun. This is, speaking of somebody that just did a sword movie with a guy that I've known for 20 years, this is how people that have smacked the crap out of each other for a long time just get together and have fun. You're sweaty, you're injured, you pull this stuff. And even you watch it, and the first time you don't even notice they're just doing the same routine over and over again. But it just sort of looks like fun, they're having a blast. And I think that story is what let it go on. Unfortunately, they didn't spend enough time training Richard Mall to do anything other than say scary things. They didn't train him to be good. And that's nothing that's his fault. That's just, they didn't choose an actor that could really do it.
Billy Duke continues her review saying Stan Kirsch as Richie, he was charming and cute. He added a light and interesting element to the series as Duncan's protege. In the pilot, he sort of represented us, the audience. He slunk around and peeped in windows on the outside looking in at something bizarre that he didn't quite believe. I remember you made a point about Richie's character like that a long time ago.
Yeah.
That he was us, a conduit to this immortal world.
Yeah, and I think, again, I love season 1 visually. I think it's the best. Him being so blatantly 90s based and Duncan being something completely different, just the visual difference there was crazy. And of course, Tessa, I got to love that. But this whole set, Steve Gaghan just knocked it out of the park with this because I finally saw a map of how this is set up, and it's like, that's not how I thought it was laid out. And like, all the different nooks and crannies they have of this, but like, this isn't a normal person's world. Like, everybody else is going to be lost in this, and having like somebody like Richie as our guide.
Not only that, but we also have the debut of the green jacket.
Yeah, that awful
the blue
green
and green leather jacket. She goes on, Billy, in her review, saying, including Christopher Lambert in the pilot, in order to officially pass the torch, was a smart move. I also think that they're wise not to just cast someone else as Connor McLeod. Connor had character baggage that would have made it harder for them to write for him. Plus, the diehard Highlander movie fans would have been pissed. 5, they included wonderful music by Queen in the first film, which is stirring as well as oddly appropriate. Richard Mall's slant was so terrible that he did the impossible. He made Mario Van Peebles look good. The Hannibal Lecter mask and the shooting sword handle were attempts to make him unique and scary, but instead they came off as totally ridiculous. I suppose they had to rehash the first movie, but now they can move on, and there are much better villains and storylines to come. And then she goes on to say, I never really liked Tessa. Alexander Vandernoot was extraordinarily beautiful and had a sexy French accent, dressed well, looking good, aiming a blowtorch, and that was about it. I think they were trying to create somewhat of a Connor Heather vibe with Tessa. When they meet, when they met, he was an older man, and now they're the same age. Soon she's going to look older than he does. Yada yada yada. The flashbacks to Duncan's slain love, Little Deer, emphasize that Duncan will almost certainly outlive Tessa unless he loses his head in the near future. And that was we had the one flashback back to this time as well, so that was kind of cool. Any thoughts on those critiques there?
I'm just going to go ahead and say that Tessa was far more interesting than Heather. Tessa exists without Duncan in a way that nobody else really does. Obviously they have built a life together, but she's doing her own thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the thing that gets Duncan to, cut somebody's head off. But she is a very realized person, a very realized character. She has her own thing. The shop is hers. The reason they go to Paris is because she is a renowned artist, and she's running this exhibition for, I can't remember if it was the Louvre or the Sorbonne, but it was substantial. I think that Heather only had a few minutes to kind of establish a relationship. And I think that in this episode, Tessa spent her minutes better. And no offense to Beatty Edney. I think she did an amazing job. But I think that Tessa kind of stood on those shoulders and did something more with that groundwork that had been laid. That's
a good point. Billy Dew rounds out her review with some bits and pieces here. Connor sponsored Duncan as Ramirez sponsored Connor. Love the double McLeod fencing scenes. In fact, they were the only decent scenes in this episode. She goes on to say, Richie is 17, Tessa is 35, Duncan will be 404 months, which means he was born in 1592. Duncan and Tessa have been together for 12 years, which must have been how long Duncan has been, quote, out of the game. You know what's funny about this? When I was reading this part of the review, I really kind of blew me away a little bit, Lee, that because you know how we really didn't see them do any flashbacks of anything in the 70s or the 80s?
Yeah.
I think we got something in the 60s with some beatniks or something, if I remember correctly.
50s or 60s when he's hunting, or Koltek hunted, what's his name?
Okay. But we never got any, recent within the last 30 years flashbacks. And it got me to thinking, okay, if he just met Tessa 12 years, he's been out of the game for quite a while if we didn't get recent flashbacks, right?
Yeah. And I will say, as a guy that was fighting for a long time and then semi-retired because my knees hurt, and they still do, but my girls wanted to spend more time with me. You get pulled out of the game for very good reason, hey, there's this really nice lady and she doesn't want to watch me bleed. And it is a very valid reason.
That kind of blew my mind a little bit that we are in this first episode, we are dropping in on Duncan's I don't know what you want to call sobriety from the game or, being celibate from the game, whatever you want to call it. But I just thought that was kind of weird. I'm sure there's been other stretches of other immortals that haven't, obviously fought in a while, but I thought that was kind of interesting. In the movies, Connor uses aliases all the time, but Duncan doesn't seem to appear to. He just says, I'm Duncan McLeod, the Clan McLeod, and prepare to die,
So I have a theory on this. It's just a lot easier for a TV audience to recognize, okay, this is one guy, he's going to stay this guy. But I've got a good in-universe thing. Next episode, or one of the next episodes is Family Tree. And his father's like, you're no son of mine. And he's like, his entire reality has been changed. I don't think he's introducing himself. I think he's declaring himself. I think he's making a statement I am Duncan McLeod, a Clan McLeod. Everything in my life has been taken from me. Everyone I loved, all this stuff. I'm not going to give that part up.
No.
Because Connor doesn't really say that to anybody but Brenda in the movie. In the first movie. It's not a thing. It's hi, I'm Kevin of Phoenix, the Clan Phoenix,
I'm sure he's changed his name when he knew that he can't go by Duncan for whatever reason, but yeah.
When he was a spy for, trying to kill Hitler, probably. But the Duncan McLeod thing, it's like the Blade of the McLeods storyline with Sandra Bernhardt. He always kept that name. So,
yeah. Adrian Paul is wearing hair extensions, and it shows. She says, but next season, it's all his. Paul also wore an earring in the pilot. Did you notice the earring?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I totally forgot about that. I'm like, whoa, what is that? Is that a rock? What's going on there? Wonder why he stopped wearing the earring. Kind of bummed about that anyway. So yeah.
It probably healed up. So
all right, man. We got some Highlander trivia here. All right. This is a pilot trivia here. The pilot episode of The Gathering was originally intended to be the third Highlander sequel, a TV movie with a 2-hour running time. Eventually, the budget was too low, and Christopher Lambert didn't agree to star until late on in the project, in the production. So the idea was scrapped, and the episode was edited down to an hour. Free Fall was actually the first episode that they actually did film. But this, of course, was the first one that aired. And and related to that, as the trivia goes on here, this is the only episode for the entire television series which features the character Connor McLeod. While the character was often mentioned in the series, actor Christopher Lambert made no return appearances. Reportedly, Lambert requested a high fee for his single appearance. It was simply too expensive for the production team to have him return. They could not afford to pay him. I don't know about you, man, but for the first episode, I would have paid him for a few more days, make a 2-hour episode out of it.
Yeah, but I will say it's kind of like the Connery thing. Completely worth it in Highlander 1. Highlander 2, it was the best part of the movie, but it had absolutely nothing to do with the movie.
True.
He does nothing. So, like, how are you going to bring him in? You know, it's sort of like when they had the Buffy and Angel crossovers. Like, as soon as you brought them into each other's worlds again, it sort of sucked.
Yeah.
You know, so I like them keeping it separate, but, you know, not to say that I wouldn't have enjoyed another episode with Connor, but I'm okay with that.
Trivia continues. The episode sets the pace for the Highlander television series to be set in an alternate universe from the Highlander films. In Highlander 1986, the Gathering of the Immortals take place, and Connor ends up the last surviving immortal. This episode and the television series in general featuring the Gathering is a future event, and there are many surviving immortals. Highlander 2, The Quickening, reveals the immortals to be aliens from the planet Zeist, a fact ignored by the television series in later incarnations of the Highlander franchise.
It just makes me mad. You just ruined the show.
We roll with it. There we go. Actor Alistair Duncan was considered for the lead role in the series. He later made a guest appearance as immortal Terrence Coventry. Anthony DeLongis, Gary Daniels, James Horan, Alex Denisoff, and Gurren Davies were in the running for the role of Connor McLeod back when the character was going to be the main lead in the series. So yeah, I guess they were going to go with someone else playing Connor type of thing. So this episode established the fact that Connor McLeod used to be the mentor of his younger kinsman, Duncan McLeod. Their first meeting, as mentioned, was often in the series, but not actually depicted. It would actually be depicted in the film Highlander Endgame in 2000. So yeah.
They probably didn't want to show it because of the embarrassing little servant.
Yeah.
That guy was so weird, man. I just don't get it. That was why,
a little weird,
dude. Yeah.
A little weird. All right, let's get into the main part of the show. Let's review and discuss Highlander: The Gathering. All right. So, in case you're wondering about the plot and you forgot, I'll go into it briefly here. Richie Ryan breaks into Duncan McLeod and Tessa Noel's antique store, but his robbery is interrupted by the dramatic entrance of immortals Slan Quince, played by Richard Mall, and Connor McLeod, played by Christopher Lambert. Witnessing them, Tessa realizes to her dismay that Duncan can be challenged and beheaded at any time. Duncan, knowing that he cannot flee the game, expects her to leave him for his own safety. After Duncan saves Tessa from Quince, Connor fights Quince on the bridge, but is shot by a hidden weapon and knocked over the railing. Duncan beheads Quince and leaves the town. Connor advises Duncan to watch Richie and tells Tessa where Duncan is. Accepting the danger, Tessa reunites with Duncan. You know, after I was reading this, Lee, a couple things kind of, not saying blew my mind on this, but Tessa realizing to her dismay that Duncan can be challenged and beheaded at any time, Is this something that he didn't quite talk to her about all this time? Apparently,
it is vaguely in the dialogue there, but it's I think that's one of the reasons why she gets so frustrated, like just being left out on. Oh, these are pretty important details, but I think it's an overreaction because all of us can have our heads cut off at any time. It's not very likely, but it's not like, oh yeah, if you cut my head off, I'm going to be fine. And with my mouth, there's probably people that want to cut my head off.
The other thing too, which is kind of interesting and foreshadowing here, is when Connor advises Duncan to watch Richie and tells Tessa where Duncan is. But so I'm thinking here, like, this could let us know that Duncan always knew that Richie had the immortal seed and could become immortal if he had untimely death, and that Connor knew about this.
Yep. And I can already hear the arguments in the comments. They never do this. They were going to do that. They left it open. Blah, blah, blah. I think we've seen that argument roll out at least 20 times each.
You know what? Being a Highlander fan and retconning go hand in hand.
Yep. Exactly. But I will say that watching it as it came out as a kid, I wasn't prepared for it. Like, I just thought, like, oh, this kid knows the secret. We need to do it. Watching it now, I can see breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
But, like, as a kid, that shock of Tessa getting carjacked, I was not prepared for it. And I think that was a moment that you don't expect in a show like this.
It's true.
So.
This is a picture of my copies that I took, of course, of the double cassette here. And when you open it up, there's the 2 VHS tapes with a little certificate thing on the inside there. So there you go. And this is, of course, a copy of the VHS tape overseas. It just showed Highlander 2 Duncan.
You mean Connor?
I'm sorry, Connor. Yeah, sorry. Yes. Yeah. No Duncan to be seen, but mentioned in the bottom there. So yeah. But of course, this stars Adrian Paul, buddy. This is Adrian Paul's first leading role and what he is most known for, of course. And we also get, I decided to pull some pictures up of his immortal information, of course, that you would see on the DVDs. But I did want to mention, going back to the VHS tape, was that if you keep letting the episode play, there's
the earring.
There it is. Yeah. You should have kept wearing that. I like that. As a man who used to wear earrings, so in both ears. But there's a behind-the-scenes video as an added bonus. The tape features 30-minute behind-the-scenes video that tells the story of the creation of Highlander. Features interviews with Christopher Lambert and Adrian Paul. But there was a bunch of others here too, dude. I took some notes here. So interviews with Adrian, Christopher Lambert, Bill Panzer, of course, Alexander Vandernoot, Stan Kirsch, Richard Mall. Bob Anderson, the Swordmaster, was interviewed. Steve Gagan, as you said, production designer, and the costume designer as well. Joan Jett was also interviewed because she had been in the first episode that was actually filmed. And there's a really cool scene of her practicing with Bob Anderson. Now, Joan Jett could go on and say, yes, I have played on the biggest of rock stages of all time. But when you talk to Highlander fans, the most impressive thing that they'll want to hear is that she got to hang out and learn swordsmanship from Bob Anderson.
Yeah. And I'd like to point out something that Bob Anderson says in this, and I bring it up every time people talk about Viggo Mortensen. When they're talking about Bob Anderson in this video, if I'm remembering it correctly, says, yes, Adrian Paul is the most physically gifted physical athlete I've worked with, swordsman. And he always says that about his lead actor, no matter what. And when, that other fandom, the Lord of the Rings, they're like, oh, yes, Viggo Mortensen is the best swordsman that ever lived, because Bob Anderson said so. It's like, Bob Anderson said that about Richard Gere, too. And if you've seen First Night, it's like, really? Him?
Maybe each person kept getting better and better until Viggo Mortensen was the best. It's like,
I might be a little bit biased, but I've got swords from all these. I really will say that it is Adrian. He did more, and he had more time with this, but he really did more with the sword. And I think the amount of time that he put into truly learning the sword instead of playing a swordsman really shows, especially once you get to season 3 and 4.
They also talked to the prop master, Bob O'Brien, as well. It was a really cool little behind the scenes thing. And I tried to search for it on YouTube. I don't know what the exact title was. I was doing Highlander the Gathering behind the scenes, special features. And I kept kind of finding other little snippets and stuff, but I couldn't find this 30-minute thing on YouTube. And maybe it's under a different title or something like that. But if you can find a way to do it and get this thing and watch it, it's very, very cool. I thought it was really neat. And just seeing Bob Anderson also go, he was like, watch Highlander or something like that. He was touting, he was really excited about the project, which was really neat, And of course, you had Richard Mall just, even though he's off camera being interviewed, he's just eating up the role as the villain, There can be only one, I'm like, yeah, okay, Kurgan too.
Yes, I am playing this evil character. It's just, it was, I gotta say though, as an actor who has been pigeonholed because I am an enormous, terrifying person, having done 7 seasons as Bull on Night Court, I would have swung for the fences on this too. I would have tried to show anybody anything other than I'm the big idiot that stands in the corner and says stupid shit. I'm not gonna take anything away from Richard Mall. Yeah, swing for the fences, dude. I love it because it was this, and then shortly after this was Sidekicks, the fine Jonathan Brandis martial arts vehicle.
Rest in peace, Jonathan Brandis.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's. I got some topics here. I got about 4 topics here, and the first one I wanted to ask you, Lee, was looking back. Was Highlander the Gathering Season 1, Episode 1 a good start for the show?
Yes, if only because you get a full season of this. If it had been like they do today, we'll do 2 episodes, and if it works out, we'll order a season. If we had not had a full season locked in place with the Paris half, this episode would have died on the vine. But this first half of the season set up this guy is from something else. And then when we get to Paris, which, trust me, in 92, 93, when that changeover happened, nobody was prepared for that to happen on a crappy, a syndicated show. That was a huge thing. If it had started in Paris, I don't think it would have had the same response because, where would Richie have come from? He would not have been our way in. I love this episode, even the crappy parts, the Richard Mall, God, that green jacket, all the stupid little do-rags. Again, looking like a backup dancer for Vanilla Ice here. But I would say this is, on its own, it's not a good episode. Because the season was locked in place, this was able to set the stage for so many things. We get the origin of the Richie story. We get a beautiful setup for the Tessa and Duncan dynamic. And I don't think that we have a relationship level like this in any action show of the time. I mean, you definitely don't have it on Renegade. You don't have it on other stuff. But this really did set it up. And I think that plot-wise, it's pretty thin, but setup-wise, it really is good. How about you, man?
Yeah, I think it's a great start to it. Yes, it's got that kind of, pilot cheese to it, but man, you're passing the torch from the original Highlander to the new Highlander. And you did this without recasting the original Highlander, which apparently they were going to try to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was great that they were able to finally, and I can only imagine them going, okay, we can't get Christophe Lambert. Let's go ahead and do this first episode free fall. And then let's do a couple more. And then all of a sudden they go, hey, we got Christophe. Oh, great. Well, let's film that and we'll air it first. But what's really cool about it is that even though, Slan could have been anyone,
Mm-hmm.
And the best parts of this film are the moments with Connor and Duncan, and of course with Duncan and Tessa, because they're setting up that relationship. And even the Tessa, Connor, and Adrian scenes were good too. And them kind of resetting the rules, letting you know, okay, we're going to kind of, kind of start from scratch here, but not, this doesn't mean that anything that happened in Highlander is now, not thing anymore. And so it was a good way to kind of just reset Highlander. And I think you're right with the other episodes. When you watch the other episodes, you look back at this one going, yeah, Slan was Slan, but you know what? This really kind of set the stage for Adrian to really kind of make it his own. Mm-hmm. And, yes, we didn't get Christoph until the movie later on, but that's okay. This was Adrian's story to tell. So yeah, I thought it was good. And I, for what it was at the time, and I still look back on it fondly. So yeah.
One thing I wish they would have kept is just pick one main cop. Jay Brazo did a great job.
Right.
I really liked him as Kaminsky. I mean, he was a great character in the worst episode of this season in Bad Name Building A. He did great there. I always forget his name. He's always Venus Flytrap to me. Also did a great job. But
Reed, something Reed.
Yeah.
Name. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But we had 3 different main cops in this first half of the season. If we'd picked one of them and maybe have him working with Randy McFarlane, I think that would have been a good thing. But
it would have been interesting if a cop had accidentally found out about the world of immortals. That would have been a cool little thing. So yeah, definitely. Okay, topic number 2. Was there any missed opportunities that should have been explored in the first episode?
Well, crap! I just ruined that one. I think discussing not having kids. That obviously does come up a little bit later, but I think they really covered all the bases you could expect in 42 minutes on this show.
It was more like 48.
Okay. But still, you get the master-student relationship, you get the origins of the Richie relationship, you get the this continuation of a relationship that preexists with Tessa. You get the fear of being found out by the cops. I don't know what I would have added into this, to be honest. Other than taking a little bit more time to train Richard Mall to be a better swordsman and be more of a threat.
I think what was missing, if anything, because if they could have paid Christoph a little bit more money, I would have loved to have gotten maybe another flashback, like a training scene between him and. Obviously we got something, of course, in the movie and that covered it, but I would have loved to have seen something right away, like when they first met or something, or just any other flashback to where early in Duncan's immortality, I thought would have been really, really cool. Because I felt the reason why I'm saying that is because the flashback to the Old West or whatever, that kind of touched on the lost love and as Connor says, they're all going to die. But I would have liked to have seen a flashback between those two guys, maybe having a fun moment or a training moment. That was the only thing I wish that was missing, I think.
And you know what? It would have set up something that they touched on in the Immortal Chimoli when in the flashback to that.
Sorry, I'm waiting at the edge, figuring out how you're going to tie this into the Immortal Chimoli.
No, you have that scene where he's training in the flashback the snotty Norman Prince.
Yeah.
And you take that, it's different. Sword fighting is not the same when that injury isn't going to kill you, like when you can heal from it. Because we have that same scene, where Ramirez dunks Connor in the lake. You can't drown, you fool. You're immortal.
Yeah.
And you have this thing. It's like, oh, this is how it's different. And continuing that, I think it would be a good idea to keep that there. So, like you're saying, that training sequence would have gone a long way to non-movie fans.
Yeah.
Of just saying, this is not the same world you're used to. And I'll go on again and say, I loved everything David Abramovitz did except for changing the wardrobe, because Duncan started to look like a normal dude, and it's like, this should not look like a normal dude. Everything he wore in season 1, as crazy as it was, it's like, what else is a 400-year-old Scotsman that saw the French Revolution and fought in the Civil War going to wear? He's not going to be wearing Levi's and polo shirts. No, he's going to be wearing something crazy, because who's going to tell him not to?
I wanted to touch on something you had mentioned about, I wish they would have said as well that why they can't have kids, or they just can't have kids, because they did touch on the holy ground thing with the flashback, because of where Duncan was, and he asked the elders or whoever it was of the tribe to build his home there, and so he could not, it was basically hiding on holy ground like Darius did. But it just, I felt there was like a missed opportunity that would have been kind of funny, of why he can't have kids. And then, Tessa could have gone, yeah, I know you've been shooting blanks for years, or something funny like that.
Yeah.
There could have been some humor in that. I thought that would have been kind of funny. So, okay. So, let's get to topic 3 here. Lee, what were some of your favorites or least favorite moments in the episode?
As far as least favorite, I'd say that it really is the Slan fights. And I think it kind of comes down to the lack of camera movement that really didn't sell like a lot of things. Like, there's no reason to run like this and just, I'm going to stab you. Like, of course you're going to get out of the way. It's crazy, but like, it wasn't edited in a way that gave any weight to Slan. I think that was kind of crappy. As far as good moments, I mean, obviously the sword fight was great, but just
which one?
Oh, the Connor Duncan one. I thought that was a lot of fun, but just the smack talk that they had between Connor Duncan and then Duncan and Tessa. Oh, don't say anything in front of the ladies. I'll just go sit in the parlor and crochet while you drink cigars, drink brandy, smoke cigars, talk about beheadings. Like, that's like, oh yeah, talking smack to your man. I like that. That's that's what you get after a while. It's like, okay, honey, I'll be out here. Like, no. You get the smack talk. Like, that was you don't really get smack talk like that from any of the others, and Lindsay, absolutely loved her, but like they didn't have enough time to just sort of be smartasses to each other.
Yeah. If I had to choose least favorites, I just, I mean, Slan was Slan, he could have been better. He did go cheesy, and he was a knockoff version of Kurgan, I would have liked a little more out of that. But I got to say, though, I love the exploding hilt trick. I don't understand why Immortals used more dirty tricks as opposed to like, we would see like Paul Kinman with guns and stuff like that later on, and how they would just shoot Immortals down and then take their heads, dirty. I would have liked to have seen more dirty tricks from Immortals. And I thought that was really cool. Even in the Highlander CCG card game, there is a card that you can play that's called, exploding hilt or something like that. And it's like a projectile weapon, like a gun. I like the idea, but when you were talking about his the sword fighting in the filming, I just thought he was just a clunky sword fighter anyway. But I'm not going to get too critical on that. But one of my favorite moments is I loved not necessarily the fight, but I love the location. I'm going to put a picture up here of the actual fight at the end on that bridge, because as we know, Lee, one of the cool things about Highlander is fights in cool locations. And of course, the first Highlander started off with that awesome fight set in modern day in a parking lot.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
under Madison Square Garden.
Yes. And then it's just gone on from there. And I also bring up this fight scene too, because if you go on, and here's Slan with the exploding hilt there, and then Duncan comes into fight. But I also put this scene here too, because there's a cool quickening scene, of course, and by the way, when he cuts off Slan's head, you actually see like no head, and then like the energy coming out of the stump of the neck, where later on we would never see that really in other episodes. We would just kind of see it off camera. So that was kind of cool.
Could you scroll back one picture here?
Yeah.
The way that we see Slan Quince holding the sword here, this is just a little tidbit for everybody watching along at home. When you're using a two-handed sword and you have the hands right up on top of each other like that, that is actually a safety technique. You wouldn't use a two-handed sword like that. That long hand you would actually have spread apart. When you're like that, you get this mechanical stop when your wrists kind of hit each other. So you can't actually swing through and hit your partners. So this was something that Bob Anderson came up with. You'll see it a lot. But I love that Braun came up with a way to do a proper two-handed grip where they're spread apart. You start to see that in season 3 and still remain safe. And I think that's something that was missing from a lot of choreography in the 90s. And I really got to give Braun props for bringing that part back. So just a cool little inside baseball moment. Very cool.
Very cool. By the way, that bridge, I believe, is the Burrard Bridge that I think that the Sword Experience will be taking you to. And also, and here's a cool picture of the quickening from a distance of that bridge. And then, of course, Duncan going down to get Connor out of the ocean there. But I have actually been to that bridge on the tour with Andy, and here's what it looks like during the daytime. It's a really cool location. And
right
I also
getting an IPA with that beard, man.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, and Andy, I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe
he will.
Down there is also the nighttime fight scene with Felice Martin. Joan Jett's character is down there on the waterfront area.
I believe it's very nearby. Yeah.
Yes, if I remember correctly. So anyway, very cool location that you get to go to when you take the tour with Andy. So make sure you hit him up next time you do that. So I did like the end scene too, how they kind of wrap things up with Connor. Apparently he canoed to this location that they were at, because that's a canoe behind them, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I'm sure they're like, hey, Christoph, you don't actually have to canoe, just walk like you were in it, but we don't need to see you getting in it and taking off again. And I just thought that was kind of fun.
You know what? That's something I really do wish they had brought back this place more.
What, canoeing? What?
No, like his house on the holy ground. They brought it back before he fought Grayson, but they didn't really do a lot with it in later seasons. Like they allude to him going to it before he kills Michael Christian. But like it was a great setup that they didn't continue. And, that's half of, figuring out what the story is. You got to see what sticks to the wall when you throw it. But that was a really cool spot.
I did want to give a shout out because you mentioned him earlier, and he was interviewed on that 30-minute special following the VHS presentation of Highlander the Gathering. Is Steve Gagan himself. When I took the tour with Andy, we actually were invited by Steve Gagan to his personal house for an interview that I did, and you can find that on Bloody Kings. And his friend here, Suki, she worked on Highlander as well in the production team, and one of her most famous things that she worked on was the statue of Kali. But I asked her, what other things have you worked on sets? And you know what her other most famous thing that she worked on was she worked on the butt end of the animal in Ace Ventura 2 that he comes out of.
Look, kids, we're about to witness the miracle of birth.
But I just want to thank Steve for letting us come to his home, because we were going to interview him at a restaurant. He's like, "Why don't you come to the house?" And he lives on a beautiful location up there in northern Vancouver, overlooking the ocean. It's gorgeous up there. So
I will say I became a fan of a TV show simply because I saw him interviewed in the run-up Defiance.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I remember him talking about that.
Yeah, when they were doing the lead up to it, I just saw him being interviewed on Sci-Fi, and I'm like, "Oh, what's this?" And I'm like, "Oh, Steve Gavan worked on it. I'll give it a try," and I watched all 3 seasons.
And he also did, I think it was Snowpiercer. He was a production designer on that. I think he did some Stargate as well. So yeah, cool guy.
Stargate, yeah.
Very, very cool guy. Last topic was: did you have any other topics or comments or any observations about Highlander the Gathering, Lee?
Um, I think that it really is. You can tell how big they wanted the story to get from this, because that antique store was a wonderful setup. I mean, they did steal a little bit of the idea from Christopher Lambert in the original show or in the original movie, but that was just like where he was. Like this was payoff for so many little things that they did down the line, um, in a way that I don't think the dojo paid off the same way.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but just the emotional beats that we get going all the way through to the final episode when we bring Richie and Tessa back, and the loss that as fans we had when they died multiple times, uh, was really kind of palatable. And it's as much as I didn't like that last season, I did like returning to that route.
One of the things that you have been very adamant about and that I've admired is your opinion on the first season, because a lot of people will go back to the first season and saying that was one of the worst. You have you died on the hill on this. You say season one's your favorite for a lot of reasons, but a lot of it is because of how it was shot.
Oh yeah, it's so much more cinematic. It's so much, and the set design, uh, just unreal. And you did not see anything being done like this, on real television, much less, basic cable television. And, I mean, this did pave the way for Stargate, which got more and more amazing as the seasons and the series went on.
I mean, seriously, what shows have traveled between two countries to showcase their stars and the ongoing story and mythology?
Yeah.
Who does that anymore?
There was one show on NBC Online called Crossing Borders, and that was like they started in New York and then they moved to Europe, and they would go across all these countries in Europe, but it was a little difficult to kind of get it all done. But like that's the only one I can think of.
Yeah.
Oh, I was also going to go back to one thing. One of the reasons why all the locations in Paris were so close is if you have a crew of less than 10 people in Paris, you don't need a permit. And if you're not going to multiple locations, you don't need a driver. So they could just they could have somebody drop the equipment off that's not their driver. And then you can have this 10-person crew and you can shoot in all these places and not need a permit as long as you don't set up lights. So like all those outdoor shots, everything like that was getting around. They've never said it online or on any of this stuff, but having filmed in Paris, that's one of the things you do. And they probably don't want anyone to know that, but
it's interesting. You reminded me of something that I do kind of miss from the special features on the DVD of season one. Is just Bill Panzer himself just shooting the shit, talking about the scenes. And it's just him, and then as, the seasons went on, the behind the scenes got, obviously they had more of a budget and they got more people involved. Abramowitz would come in and, but I like Bill Panzer. I love it when he talks Highlander and, he was the man, and he just, I
do like how confused and annoyed he is by the idea of it in those first few.
Yes,
this is Highlander. I'm going to talk about this episode. As I try to get the words past this big push broom of a mustache I have in the middle of my face.
Yes.
And it completely matches my hair, which I have not dyed.
Well, it's been fun revisiting Highlander the Gathering. Here we are right here. There's a video cassette.
Yes, sir.
One of my favorite collectibles here, and the fact that I actually can still watch this, which is nice. So, all right, well, let's wrap this up.
Sure.
All right. All right, this is Blood of Kings, Highlander episode 170, and we are talking about The Gathering, season 1, episode 1, aired October of 1992. And first of all, Lee, welcome back. Glad to finally have you back talking some Highlander. I hope you'll be back soon, because I know you're still not done, doing your acting and stuff. So
Yeah, that's never over, but I feel like, 4 months of sword training is a good enough reason to miss a Highlander podcast for a little while. That's about the Highlanderist reason you could possibly have. I mean, think about it. Duncan disappeared for a year and he just hung out giving himself haircuts and doing martial arts in temple after he killed Richie.
I still feel strongly that we missed out on an opportune flashback from somewhere in the 80s, dude. I wish we would have gotten a Duncan in the 80s, maybe going to a Poison concert or, just doing something very 80s.
I would have loved it if it was like some crappy synth pop.
Yeah.
He was oh man, if he was into Flock of Seagulls or
Men Without Hats or something like that,
We were so invited and we danced all day and we danced all day
long. Or maybe
long.
he could have been one of the ants in Adam and the Ants. How cool would have that been,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Have the safety dance, just
there you go.
I'm loving that idea, Kevin. When we remake the series, that's what we're doing.
All right. Well, you are listening and watching the Fandom Podcast Network on the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel. And our master feed is at fpnet.podbean.com. Please, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll get the all of the shows on the Fandom Podcast Network are now on video on the YouTube channel. And of course, the audio podcast drop as well. And the audio podcast is on all major podcast platforms, which includes Apple Podcasts /iTunes. The fpnet.podbean.com. If you click on there too, you can go straight to the Bloody Kings section as well. And you can stream them directly in case you want to see all of our back episodes. We are also on Twitter /now X, Bloody Kings Pod, Instagram, Bloody Kings Pod. And of course, if you haven't already, please check out the Bloody Kings, a Highlander fandom Facebook group. And did you know that we also have a sister group for those of you that are into Highlander CCG and collectible card gaming? We have the Bloody Kings Highlander CCG group as well. And it's now become like the group to go to if you want to play a Highlander card game, because there's fans that are still making cards. So make sure you check that out. You can email us at bloodykingspodcast@gmail.com. My name is Kevin. I am on Twitter /X, Instagram, and now Threads at Spartan_Phoenix. Lee, where can we find you?
Sitting in the parlor, smoking cigars, drinking brandy, talking about beheadings. Otherwise, you can find me on Facebook under my name, Lee Fillingsness, on Instagram at The Way of the Way. I also want to shout out friend of the show, Krista Rose, just had her first kid. Oliver Isaac. And she was, for those of you who remember, she was the one that saw the 35th anniversary re-release of Highlander with us. So I want to wish her all the best with her and her new little knucklehead.
Yay, congratulations. Please give us a rated review on your podcast platforms. We would love that. 5 stars, of course. And please support us on our TeePublic store. I'm rocking my Bloody Kings Team Iron Pipe, because if you don't have a sword, an iron pipe is an immortal's next best weapon. So make sure you check that out. Just search Bloody Kings on TeePublic or Fandom Podcast Network and get your stuff there. So Lee, it has been great to get back with you. We'll be doing another show next month, and we'll be talking about, of course, my tour there in Paris. Do you have any suggestions for anyone that hasn't been to Paris in a while or has not been to Paris? What would you recommend? What advice would you give them?
I would recommend finding the thing that you really enjoy. If you like art, don't do 1 hour in the Louvre, do a day.
Yeah.
But generally, I really recommend people do the gardens, whether it's the Tuileries Gardens by the Louvre, the Jardin Luxembourg. It's just really a fun way to see the city. And if you're going to Montmartre, you're going to have a great view. You know what? Best place to watch the sunset in Paris, Parc de la Butte Chaumont. And I'll send you how to spell it, but you're basically at that time of year, if I'm remembering correctly, the sun is going to set right behind Sacre-Cœur, which is the church at the top of Montmartre, and It's just this beautiful little park that is not touristy yet, or at least it wasn't when I was there. But great spot, way out in the middle of nowhere, but a lot of fun. And it'd be a great place to shoot a Highlander fight.
Great. I love that. I have to look out for that. That's cool. Again, this is Blood of Kings, and we have been discussing Highlander the Gathering Season 1, Episode 1. And also hit us up on social media. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about. Go back to reviewing episodes, talk about some themes. Let us know. We'd love to get your opinion there on Blood of Kings. So let us know on social media as well. Well, Lee, my name is Kevin, and on behalf of you, Lee, thanks everyone for listening, and join us again next time here, Fandom Podcast Network, for another episode of Blood of Kings. That sensation you are feeling is the quickening. We are one. We are immortals.
Farewell, dear shitheads.
See you later, everyone.
You